Greetings, one and all, and welcome back to one of the wonders of the world, the car park outside the MKM Stadium, on a day where Hull City have beaten Portsmouth by 3-2 to move 5th in the Championship after 15 games. Quite a first half at the MKM Stadium. City should have been 2-0 up inside 9 minutes through Carl Joseph and Joe Gowhart, but then found themselves a goal down when Terry Devlin's rasping effort cannoned, I think, off Joseph and into the roof of Ivor Panda's net. And City were a goal down to a team that hadn't scored in the 3 previous games. I think they were 6 hours without scoring a goal. And, you know, City are defensively a fairly... what's the word I'm looking for? They're genial, I think it's fair to say. City, you know, they give opportunities to the opposition. So they're 1-0 down after 17 minutes, but they toiled for a couple of minutes. That goal obviously rocked them. It rocked the crowd, which was by some distance the biggest of the season here this afternoon. But they got themselves level. Charlie Hughes galloped forward, played in Louis Coyle, and on the stretch, Louis crossed it for Enis Destan to batter in at the near post. A really, really good first-time finish. Destan's first start in Hull City colours. He was one of 3 changes, by the way, made by Sergei Yakirovich for the 3rd game in the space of a week. Destan's probably his first meaningful touch in the game, really, if I'm honest. But it was a really well-worked goal. I said Charlie Hughes did really well to, you know, come into the Portsmouth half and then play down the line for Louis, who was on the slide but managed to get a cross into the near post, and there was Destan to batter in at the near post. A really good finish, the sort of finish we've seen from Molly McBurney already this season. So City were level not long after that. I think that was 27 minutes. And then just before half-time, they scored again. Louis Coyle again down the right-hand side, refused to give up when it looked like the ball might bounce out of play. He forced a corner. From that corner, Joe Gowhart's cross to the back post, and Carl Joseph, who should have scored in fairness with the first chance of the game, when Regan Slater brilliantly played him through and his shot was saved. He got up above the defender and powered the header into the far corner, and City were 2-1 up just before, I think, 43 minutes just before half time. You're thinking, brilliant. You know, they've gone behind, they've come back, they've got themselves in front, and, you know, now get through to half time and you know, have a conversation and sort 1 or 2 things out, and then you're in control coming into the second half. But no, that'd be too obvious, wouldn't it? City kind of were in no danger, really. Portsmouth had got the ball 15, 20 yards outside the Tigers' box. Amir Hadzimitovic, who was one of the changes back into the team this afternoon, he did really well initially to win the ball, and he just dallied on it. He sort of ran round in a circle. 2 players converged on him, took the ball off him, and, you know, Yakirovich wanted a free kick. It wasn't a free kick. He was just bullied off the ball. The ball then went out to Josh Murphy. Amir he sort of ambled across, didn't make any effort to stop the cross, and to be fair, Murphy just one touch, bang, to the back post, and Terry Devlin, who'd scored the first goal, he's not scored for quite a while, as we understand it. He sort of ghosted in and flicked a header back in at the back post. I mean, it's awful defending again. I mean, Amir's very good, but there are times when he dallies on the ball so often, you just don't get that level of time in the Championship. People aren't going to allow you to spend 5 minutes on the ball just touching it round to try and play the perfect pass. That just isn't going to happen. So he was at fault for losing the ball. He should have just, instead of trying to be clever and dally on it, you know, in his own half, he should have gone up the line and just away from danger. You know, you're trying to see out the final, you know, it was in added time at the end of the first half. So you're just trying to see out that last few seconds and get into half time at 2-1. But he then doesn't get quickly enough out to stop Josh Murphy. Louis Coyle sort of doesn't know whether to come or to stay. In the end, stays. I'm not sure he'd have got there in any case. Murphy whips it in, and Devlin just sort of, he's on the blind side of Charlie Hughes. He runs kind of, Gilo doesn't really track him, and in the end he runs in between the 2 of them and just guides a header into the far corner. Goalkeeper no chance, and that's a really bad goal. So you're 2-2 at half time. Second half, City were the dominant force without really looking like scoring. They had a couple of moments. There was a Giles cross for Slater, who I thought was brilliant today, in the middle of the park. Slater running in on the dive and headed it over. Gilo had a free kick, a volley, which I'm not convinced has landed yet. It might, if there are any boats out on the Humber, they may well have been in danger, because Gilo's volley was a boomer. He got right underneath it. Like I say, they were City were in control. They never looked in any great danger, but they didn't really look like scoring until the 79th minute when Charlie just gets the ball inside his own half. He's allowed to sort of carry it forward a yard or two, and then he clips one over the top for Gowhart, who runs onto it, times his run perfectly, takes it down, and it's an expert finish, and that's 3-2. And you think, well, they're going to go on and see it out, and then the referee puts 8 minutes of injury time up, or added time up. We end up playing into the 100th minute. Their goalkeeper we saw that, I'm sure it's Birmingham, where the Birmingham goalkeeper came up and headed over late on, while the Pompey goalkeeper came up and headed over late on, it was like the Alamo. They were long balls, long throws, everything coming into the box. He sent on Shemi Ajayi, who was the third change out of the team, and he sent on Akin Famewo to try and, in the final, 5 minutes or so, to try and just see it out. But they did in the end, and that, today was never going to be, a free-flowing type of game. Portsmouth are in all kinds of trouble. They've obviously not won away from home since the opening day. They'd lost the last 3 before drawing at home to Wrexham on Wednesday night. They're right down there. So they were never going to come and roll over, and particularly when they're given 2 goals free of charge, City made it hard work for themselves. Had Kyle scored and Joff scored in the first 9 minutes, they'd have been 2-0 up, and it might have been a very different game. But as it was, the Championship, we know what it's like. We know how ruthless it is. How if your level drops or you give the opposition a sniff, they will punish you. And Portsmouth, to their credit, scored 2 goals. But as I say, both were entirely avoidable. Even the first goal, there's a free kick comes. Amir's penalised for a foul. The ball comes in. Panda is in acres of space. He's sort of outside his 6-yard box. The cross comes in. He's got nobody near him, but he elects to punch. If he'd have claimed it, the goal doesn't happen, because he punches it out. They recycle the ball, they keep it alive, and then obviously the lad Devlin has a volley which isn't going in, but it hits Carl Joseph and spoons into the roof of the net. And you're thinking, bloody hell, this can be one of those days here. But look, credit to them. This is a different Hull City team. It's a team that have got something about them, and that's 2 setbacks. They responded to both of them, and then they went on and won the game. And as I say, Portsmouth were never going to come and roll over today. They were always going to come and dig in and give it absolutely everything. And you've got to beat these teams. And we said before the game, this was a real good test of City's character after what happened at Derby on Tuesday night. Final game before the international break. If you've got aspirations of being a team capable of getting in and around the top 6, this is a game you've got to be winning against a team that, as gritty and as whatever as they are, they're in poor form. You can't come away from here going, oh, we've got a point or we've lost. You've got to win this game, and nobody really cares how. And it should have been more comfortable in that first half, but it wasn't. But ultimately, they've got the job done, and that's now whatever happens in Charlton are away at Wrexham, and it was 0-0. So, assuming that stays as it is, City will go into the break in 5th. They can't be lower than 6th because of other results. Preston and Millwall drew earlier on as well. So City are guaranteed to be in the top 6 going into the international break, which I think, if you'd have said to anybody, and I include anybody in and out the football club here, that after 15 games, as you go into November international break, you're going to be 5th in the Championship, potentially 6th at worst, I think people would have thought you were on cloud cookie land, frankly. So they've taken 13 points since the last international break. So they came back and won at Birmingham. Since the last international break, obviously they went into that beat in Sheffield United. They've taken 13 points from 18, winning 4 of them, drawing 1, and losing at Derby. And I think, without it being a hard luck story and what if, I mean, they should never have dropped 2 points against Charlton. I mean, it's another defensive howler. They should have won that game. And let's be honest, at Derby, they got themselves back in the game at 1-1. Very worst at Derby, they get away from Derby with a point. The calamitous goal they've conceded there, and they lose the game. So the 2 games they've dropped points in, I think even if I don't think I'm being over the top. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks, but I don't think I'm being over the top to suggest that, that the points they've dropped against Charlton and Derby, they shouldn't have done, really. And they've done that without, obviously, as we know, without Miller, more recently Miller, Bloomy for the whole period, McBurney pretty much for the whole period since he went off after an hour at St Andrews, John Lundstrom as well, and other players have been in and out the team through illness and fitness as well. So I think, look, it's been whatever you say, I think it's been a stunning return. 13 from 18, they're in the playoffs going into the international break. When we get back, hopefully QPR, Lundstrom comes back into the team. Balumi's had another couple of weeks in training. He was on the bench today, didn't get on. I think the plan with that, from what I gather, was let's say they'd have been 2-0 up, 3-0 up going into the final 15 minutes, they probably would have put him on for the last 15 or 20 minutes. But given the game was so nip and tuck and it was on the knife edge, they didn't want to put him on and risk him, because he only returned to training on Thursday, on Thursday, yeah. So he's only had 2 training sessions coming back from that hamstring problem that's kept him out since Southampton. So he'll have another full 2 weeks of training. He's not going to play in the 21s on Tuesday. There will be 1 or 2 first team players. Expect Firmino to play, possibly Darko JB, maybe 1 or 2 others that play against, I forget who it's against, forgive me, but it's at North Ferriby on Tuesday, and then they play Sheffield United at Bramall Lane the following week, the 21s. But yeah, so they've been doing this without a lot of key players. So it's credit to the likes of Kyle, of Regan, of Louis, Charlie. They've been fantastic. And I don't think you can give them enough credit for turning that result today, because after Watford, questions were asked after Watford, the way they threw it away. They responded by going on that 6-game unbeaten run, which they won 4 of them. Now, they had a setback at Derby County on Tuesday night. Yes, we know it was a game they shouldn't have lost. Yes, we know it was a calamitous winner for that lot at Pride Park. But no team is immune from setbacks. No team in the land is immune from losing football matches. It's always about how you respond. And they've gone and won a really difficult game. And let's be honest, these games are really, the Leicester games and the Ipswich games and the Southampton games, in some ways, and Sheffield United, they almost take care of themselves, because they're against big, promoted teams that have just come down from the Premier League, big parachute teams. It's easy. Them games are easy, not to get up for, but there's less expectation in some respects, because you're playing against clubs that have got an awful lot more money and have got better squads potentially. And you kind of feel that those sort of games take care of themselves. It's these type of games, the Portsmouths at home, where they're coming into it on rubbish form. Can you go and win that game? Can you avoid the banana skin? Can you find a way to win the game? It doesn't have to, yes, it'd be great if they won 5-0, but let's be realistic. It's about finding a way to grind out victories, and that's what they couldn't do against Charlton. For 90 minutes, pretty much, it felt like that they gritted it out, and they got a clean sheet, a 1-0 win against Charlton, and they don't win that. And then you go to Derby and they find a way they contrive to lose at Derby. So I think, and particularly with the big crowd as well, big crowd, big expectation. It was how do you deal with that? And then you go 1-0 down. I think real character, real balls in the dressing room to go 1-0 down, to come back and lead 2-1, and then to have the setback again of conceding before half time after you've got in front, to then go and win the game, and with a really, really a moment of quality from Gelhardt as well, and Charlie Hughes. So look, all in all, I think today was about getting through and about winning the football match, and they've done that. So absolute credit to them for doing that. Credit to the gaffer as well, who's now winging his way to the airport on a flight to Zagreb. But he's going back to spend some time with his family. A lot of the players that have played a lot of games have been told to stay away from the football club for the next week or so. Go and enjoy some time with your family. Go and get a couple of days away, because obviously once they come back a week on Monday to prepare for QPR, there's 11 games through the back end of this month, through December and into the new year, before we get to the FA Cup break, I think second weekend of January. So there's a lot of games. They're coming thick and fast. And the fact they've got into it with 3 points, they're sitting on 25 points after 15 games, which I say is a fantastic return. And that's with players to come back. So, fingers crossed, the players that are going away on international duty, John Egan, Shemi Ishai, Joel Ndala, all going away. Hopefully they come back unscathed. Hopefully, Balumi gets another 2 weeks into his legs. McBurney gets a step closer. Lundstrom's fit. Liam Miller gets a bit closer. There's hope that potentially, I think QPR's unlikely, but maybe he can come back potentially for the Ipswich game here on the last Tuesday in November. Probably more likely is the game after that, but we'll have to wait and see with that. Another positive is Matt Crooks is sitting on 4 yellow cards. He didn't get booked this afternoon. So he avoids, for now, the suspension. I think the cut-off is the 19th game, which, if my calculations are right, And Mike White, I've not allowed Mike White to tell me this because his abacus is broken. If you don't know why, tweet him and ask him. I'm sure he'd be delighted to answer it. But just mention Ryan Giles. But yeah, I think that is after the game at Middlesbrough in early December, the 5th. I think that's the 19th game of the season. So that will be the cut-off. So hopefully Crooks can get through that game without getting his fifth caution. But he's sat on 4. So yeah, all in all, you know, lots to be positive about, I think. After 15 games, he's sitting in the playoffs. I think that's been fairly tremendous, hasn't it? And I think everybody that pretty much the entirety of the 23,500 that were here today have gone home happy. I've got to give credit to the Pompey fans, because 1,700 of them have made the journey up. It's not the easiest journey at the best of times, is it? But to get up here for a 12:30 kickoff on a Saturday in November, fantastic. And City will need similar when they go down there in February, which is now also a 12:30 kickoff at Fratton Park at the back end of February. That game confirmed yesterday for telly purposes. So yeah, good job all round. No injuries that we're aware of that have come out of today's game. A first goal for Destan, another goal for Carl Jones. I think that's 12 different goal scorers in the City squad this season. So, you know, I think, again, lots of questions were asked, weren't they, when Ollie McBurney got injured. And even before that, in fairness, the questions were, you know, even when McBurney was fit, what would happen if Ollie did get injured? Who would score the goals? Where would the goals come from? Well, he's been out. You know, Ollie got injured at Birmingham, and they've been able to go on and score goals since his absence. So that's a huge positive. The one negative, and it's something that they've got to find a way of ironing out, is the goals they're conceding. That's another 2 goals here, 2 goals at Dark, obviously 4 goals in the last 2 games. And if you look at all 4 goals, they're just bad goals. You don't so much. You're always teams are going to concede goals in this league, but you don't so much mind it if it's a well-crafted goal or somebody's rattled one in from 25 yards and you go, fair play, that's a great goal. The 4 goals they've shipped at Derby and today are really bad goals. And, you know, that you can't keep scoring 3 goals to win a game. You can't keep going, well, we need to score 2 or we need to score 3 to win a football match, because that isn't sustainable. We all know that. So they still have got to find a way of, I say tighten up. It's not... I think it's more simple than that. I don't think there's anything structurally that's wrong. If you look at the 2 goals today, I don't think it's because of personnel. I don't think it's shape. I don't think it's the way they defend set pieces or even within open play. I think it's individual errors. You think of the first goal at Derby, Carlton Morris gets the run on Shemi Ajayi. For me, it's not a foul. I just think Carlton Morris wants it more. I think Shemi gets caught underneath the flight of the ball. He doesn't expect Carlton to get the run on him, and Carlton just wants it more. I'd expect a player of Shemi's quality to have seen that off. The second goal, as we know, is a cluster, you know what, from Shemi and Ivor. So that is both of those goals for me are individual errors. The goals today, the first one, as I said before, I think Ivor should claim the first free kick that comes in. There's nobody near him, and he elects to punch it. I think he should catch it. And then obviously the goal is unfortunate because it's deflected, but that's avoidable. And the second goal, as I said, if Amir doesn't give the ball away so poorly, and then even if he gives it away, fine, that happens. But then sprint and close down and make sure that Josh Murphy, Josh Murphy's their best player. Josh Murphy is the one capable of creating something. So get out and stop him, and don't let him put a free ball in the box. He just ambles out. There's no effort there from Amir to close the cross, and then obviously Devlin runs in between Charlie and Gilo, and scores the goal. So again, that's not a shape thing, that's not a tactical thing, that's just Amir's poor in the run up to the goal, and then Charlie and Giles just switch off and don't track him, and he's allowed to run in and score. So again, the 2 goals today are really poor. That's, for me, if there's one major criticism of the first 15 games, it is their defensive frailty, really. Only Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday have conceded more goals, and that is a problem. If they're going to, I think we have to consider them genuine playoff contenders now, because of after 15 games, they are where they are for a reason. They deserve to be where they are. They've beaten some very, very good teams already this season, and they're there on merit. They're not there because they've fluked it. They're there on merit. Now, if they are going to take that next step and sustain it and be there, the next task for City is to be there at Christmas. You know, on Boxing Day, is to be in the top 6 on Boxing Day, and then be in the top 6 on New Year's Day. Little, achievable aims and goals that they can look to. But if they are going to sustain this challenge, which I believe they can, they've got to tighten up defensively, because they can't keep shipping some of the goals they're shipping. So there we have it. I think that is probably time to call it a day here at the MKM Stadium. Sergei called for noise levels to rise. It's interesting, actually. You think back a year or so when Tim Volter came out after the game against Portsmouth, a 1-0 draw, and criticised the supporters the point he was trying to make. A lot of people agreed with that. He wanted more noise. He said it in a bad way. That obviously got the supporters' backs up, and he was quickly gone after that. Sergei's got an awful lot of credit in the bank with the supporters. He says the right things. He's doing a very, very good job. He asked the supporters today for more noise, likened it to Sheffield United, and he was pleased with the response. So it's just great to see City winning home games. That's 5 now for the season. That's matched the entirety of what they achieved last season. They keep ticking off those little milestones, don't they? And so now, a couple of weeks until we go down to QPR, everybody goes into the international break happy as Larry. So yeah, we'll have the podcast for you on Monday or Tuesday of this week. And obviously we've got plenty. I'm having a few days off in the break, but there'll be plenty to come throughout the international break. And then before we know it, we'll be back and building up towards that game at QPR at the back end of November. So that's it from here at the MKM Stadium. City 3-2 winners over Portsmouth. 4 wins in the 6 games since the last break. They're up to 5th in the Championship. Whatever happens in the other games this afternoon that have been played now, City will be in the top 6 at the international break, the final international break of the calendar year. And that is, however we dress it up, that is some achievement. And so huge credit to Sergei Yakurovich, his staff and the players for getting City into the playoffs. It's a fantastic achievement. Nothing's achieved yet, of course, but given where they were last season, the struggles of the summer, the struggles of the season so far with all the players they've had unavailable, to be in the top 6 after 15 games is a mark of progress. Now, can they keep it up? Up those Tigers.